Hi everyone, welcome to a special episode. I thought you would have seen the last of me in Planet Coaster 1 with my lengthy look at the latest park and the Little Pirates showreel that I published the other day. But in anticipation of Planet Coaster 2 coming out in 5 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, I thought, why don't I just record myself building a fabulous people mover station? Well, spoiler alert, I didn't end up with a fabulous looking people mover station, but I did end up with a rather nice looking elevator. And I guess that's what this episode is going to be about. How to build a semi-realistic elevator. Elevator that doesn't do anything, it's really just eye candy. Yeah, I thought, why not? One of the things that I always missed, and I think will be missing in the sequel as well, is anything that has anything to do with accessibility. Be it special ramps, escalators, elevators, special entrances for those in a wheelchair. And with all the representation that goes on in Planet Coaster, with all sorts of ages and sexualities, family makeups, skin colors, you name it. I always thought it was a shame that they, for some reason, I guess it become too complicated and too much work in terms of animation. But I always thought it was a shame that we don't have people in wheelchairs in Planet Coaster. Because, well, everyone who's ever been to a theme park knows that, yes, people in wheelchairs also like to enjoy a theme park. And it'd be nice to somehow make at least a big portion of your park and rides wheelchair friendly, if that's a word. And with that in mind, I thought I could, in the very least, make some, well, it's not functional, but make some eye candy that makes it appear as if my park is, wheelchair friendly. And so with that, we come, as you see, to the elevator. So I'm using hydro beams, who doesn't use hydro beams, and I think those are in-game glass pieces. Yeah, the problem is that it's either going to be a really narrow or a rather cavernous elevator, and I think in the end I ended up with the latter. But trickiest part here was sort of to decide, okay, what's the scale? How tall is this structure going to be? I always forget that you need a lot of height at the top, meaning where you actually get out of the elevator. And there was a bit of readjusting, as you can see here, and then I just decided to have a 4-meter tall glass at the bottom and the top, and then a 2-meter windows in the midsection. And once I had that in place, which is a bit of fidgeting, and of course things never really fitting nicely on those rotation axes, the in-game rotation thingy. I just started kind of thinking, okay, how can I fortify this elevator structure? And then you start Googling elevator pictures, glass elevator pictures, and they all look rather simple. And quite frankly, I have no idea how this one would actually work. It's not being pulled up by cables, so I figured at some point I'd have to have gliders or basically a rails on both sides, and then something that we just don't see, something magical, pulls the elevator up and brings it down. Like I said, it's only eye candy, but I thought it'd be a nice thing to do. And as you can see here, I'm using the beams there. I mean, my park is 90% hydro beams, just to sort of create something more of a solid structure. And that's kind of how the whole thing gets its shape. I wanted to have an elevator entrance and an elevator exit, so people enter on one side of the station, They enter when they are still in the space area, and they exit on the other side. So they exit the space area. Here I was struggling, still trying to come up with some sort of logical, engineer-approved system to make the elevator go up and down, if that were ever a thing. I'm curious if that is something that we could actually sort of animate in Planet Coaster 2. We'll see about that. But at some point I gave up and just kind of, caution to the wind, and let's just make something pretty. So these are the doors at the bottom, and then some more fortification going on, and sort of making a frame that I imagine will be engineerically sound, if that's a word. It's surprising how much time you can spend with this kind of stuff, and funny enough, it didn't feel frustrating, not even for a second. Asked me to do custom curbing, and I'm about to pull my hair out. But this stuff I really enjoy, because you're making something that should be functional, and you're trying to have it somehow look as if it could be something that you could actually find in the game. So you're trying not to go too modern or too off base when it comes to emulating the Planet Coaster style, and yeah, that's a lot of fun. One thing that I find extremely challenging, and this is something that I've been talking about tonight on the Bro Nation Discord, is to be building whilst recording myself. And I guess it's something that you can get used to, and maybe at some point you can even just sort of forget that OBS is recording the whole time, even though my computer will not let me forget about it, because it sounds like a rocket is about to launch, with Planet Coaster and the screen recorder going at it simultaneously. But it is really rewarding to then just speed it up, times 4, and just sort of see it all come to life. And you think, oh God, I make it look so easy when it's sped up. It was, some things did come easy. The railing that I made here, that just popped in my mind. And mind you, here I was still thinking of 3 walls, by the way, until at some point, you'll see later on, I realized that obviously I was only going to have 2 walls, because you enter from the south side at the bottom and you exit on the north side at the top. There's no other way. But I corrected that, don't you worry. This is where I was thinking, okay, this elevator looks more like a sort of furniture transportation service elevator. It's like this really wide looking thing. So I kind of surrendered to the fact that here I was going to just go along with the humongous Planet Coaster scale. There's not really any other way about it. Luckily, peeps will never be using this elevator, so hopefully it won't be too noticeable. Right, I think this is the part where I said, oh wait, hold on. Something doesn't add up. All right, now with the height, I think to myself, okay, hold on. I actually need to get out on the other side. There we are. I was also thinking maybe I should just have it sort of suspended midair. And have some... Oh no, I was thinking have some people travel in the elevator, but it's going to be extremely hard to have someone sit in a wheelchair in the elevator, and somehow, because those electronics are so humongous, so that doesn't work. Never mind. This is the part where I said somehow, something, some way, the elevator needs to traverse top to bottom and back. So I just used the rail track, the railroad railings, and I don't know. I guess it works. It's one of these things where at some point I think to myself, who cares? It's, it's a lot of make-believe anyway. Yeah, and there we are. It's starting to take shape here. Now, of course, I needed to also add the doors that I sort of added to the bottom. I also need to get them up there, so I'll do that in a moment. At first, I wanted to use the in-game air conditioning unit, but it's so humongous. It didn't work at all. I like these things from these items from the studio pack. They are extremely versatile. By the way, you might have noticed that the roof, the canopy of the people mover matches almost perfectly with the grass. And the reason for that is that I couldn't stand, as you know, you always have this bird eye perspective when you're building, right? You see everything from above. And I couldn't stand watching that glaringly white canopy. It made the whole ride feel so out of place, and any other strong color that I tried just looked off, and the thing stood out like a sore thumb, only when viewed from above, obviously. But since that's where we spend 90% of our time, I thought, why don't I do myself a humongous favor before I ditch the people mover? Let me just make the canopy, make the roof blend in. And took me a while to find the right shade of green, but here we are, and I'm very happy with it. It no longer bothers me, and now I'm glad to have this ride, this transport ride, and circle the space land. I still need to come up with a name for it. It just looks real nice, and it allowed me to get a people mover in without getting the impression that I was copying Disneyland. That's the hardest part about the sci-fi theme is there's some really good pieces in there. I mean, quite extraordinary when you really look at it. Nicely detailed, almost look like it could come from a different game at times. Makes me wonder if they somehow reused assets from, previous sessions for other games. But a wonderful theme. Just extremely difficult to actually somehow make it work in your park. And well, I gave it my best shot in my current park, and next to the Pirates Land there is the Space Land, and of course it looks fantastic next to each other, right? Because you just have that juxtaposition of the old, almost 1700s Caribbean, North European pirate architecture, heavily romanticized, of course, next to the brand new yet retro futuristic space architecture. That's also the funny thing. Have you noticed that most space architecture that we ever see is kind of stuck in the 60s? There's just something about it. Maybe it's because that's what we all grew up with, even those of us born far, and I think this is 99% of you, far after the 60s. But this is what we grew up with. And quite frankly, creating beautiful organic shapes in Planet Coaster is almost impossible anyway. So might as well stick with it. Yeah, and at this point we've got two of them. The elevator is pretty much done. It certainly isn't small, but I guess it works. I mean, it works eye candy wise. So all that was left for me to do in the end was just sort of copy paste the what do you call it, the ramp construction. It's kind of part of the station, and I'm worried that the station is getting too rectangular and that the edges are far too sharp, too rough, too blocky. So we'll see what I end up with, to be honest. You know, first I wanted to use fencing, and then I thought, why don't I just use the wall? And maybe, and this is what I was thinking, maybe I can hide some beautiful neon strips, you know, and sort of make them look like, with some, of course, hydro beams, make them look like embedded um, neon strips. So let's see how far I can get with that. In the end, it's still an extremely squarish looking station. So I think that the soft lines will need to come from the roof. And I have no idea how to go about that. It's also not being resolved in this episode. I can tell you that the roof is... I go through a couple of iterations, but I can't seem to find my groove for the roof. So my groove for the roof. So yeah, that's to be continued. Because as you see, looking at it from a distance, it's just one big blob. A very square looking blob. Now this is where I was starting to somehow get a bit freaky with the roof. I tried a couple of things. Watch this. So that's always nice, right? Sort of having this wing-shaped roof. Clashes heavily with the canopy, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just looks a bit lame because the station is so humongous, so I thought maybe I extend it. Didn't like what it looked like. So then I started to play around with it. And you know, at first I thought I have something here. I thought, oh, this could be interesting. Then I thought, no, what am I looking at? So I tried to invert the whole thing. And then I thought, oh, maybe that's nice. But it still felt too blocky and too square and too straight and too, I don't know, just Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. Yeah, so this is where we get to the end of the episode, and I can tell you, I'm just allowing you to witness my mistakes and failures as a roofer. I haven't gotten to anything. I think at some point then, I tried maybe something more organic with the single rail coaster. I had it, I still had it saved as a blueprint. And I've used it in other buildings successfully in the Spaceland. But that didn't sit well either. Tried a couple of iterations, making more elonged, going for a diagonal. But you'll see that it just doesn't sit right. Yeah, I don't know what this is supposed to be. Here I thought I was onto something, by the way. I thought, oh, that's nice. I can add the name at the straight part and then... Yeah. Not really. See, this is what happens when once you sort of run out of a concept. You're just flailing. Like, what is this even supposed to be? It's tragic. But I'm still showing it to you because, well, not every video can be a perfect show reel with perfect filters and reshade and everything working nicely. And this is the real deal. This is where Planet Coaster builders spend 99% of their time. I really wonder what kind of roof I'm going to end up with.